In this presentation, we will discuss a free tax tool that works much like tax software that can be found on the IRS website at irs.gov, irs.gov. In prior presentations, we talked about the different kinds of software that we can use, a lot of different kinds of tax software that can be used. We broke those out to professional, individual. We will be using Lacert for our example problems as a professional software, which has a straight data input screen that then kind of jumps into the tax forms very quickly. Individual software such as TurboTax typically has more of an interview process. Now, a free software or a free tool that can be used can be found at this website. It's at the iris.gov website. You can also go to iris.gov and type in withholding estimator, and you should be able to find the tool. It works a lot like the tax software that would be on the individual basis. It's going to ask a basically interview type of questions and have us put that information in a sequence of events, a sequence of questions that is very systematic and linear as we go through that interview process. That's very helpful because it helps us to think about how we would want to basically question someone or put together kind of an organizer or think about how we would want to ask for information from the client as well. So let's take a look at it. So here we are on the IRS website, and we have what they call a withholding estimator. This is going to help us to think about the amount of withholdings we need. This is really a projection tool. This is basically a projection tool, very useful for us to think about different types of tax calculations. As we think about different scenarios, you may want to plug some of those into something like this and use it basically as tax software to see what those different scenarios do to the bottom line. Note when we go through the Lacert, we're going to go back and forth from a straight data input screen and be able to jump right to the software or right to the forms, which is nice, is really fast. But in this type of software, similar to like a TurboTax or an H&R Block, we would be basically have to go back kind of to an interview process and go through the proper step within that set of questions. For example, we have the filing status. We'd enter something like the filing status. I'm going to say single. Next question. Can someone else claim you as a dependent on their tax return? I'm going to say no. And I'm not going to go through this in detail. I just want to show the feel of this, an interview type of process software, one that just goes through a series of questions rather than a direct data input type of process. Then we have a dependent. Do you plan to claim dependent on your tax return? I'm going to say no, we'll keep it easy. Then income. Do you or will you hold a job this year with paychecks from federal income tax is regularly withheld? So do we have basically a type of job where we're going to get W-2 where they're going to withhold income tax? I'm going to say yes on that one. How many jobs do you expect to hold? We're going to say, all right, the number of jobs, I'll keep it at 1. Will you receive income from a pension this year? I'm going to say no income from the pension. Check all that apply. Other sources of income. Do we have any receive Social Security benefits? Do you get any Social Security benefits? See, this is a type of questionnaire that you can think about for most clients that would be standard type of clients that would follow into a specific range that you can kind of think and plan out that you would go through, and that's being set up through the software process. Receive scholarship or grants. You will collect unemployment. You have any unemployment compensation. Earn net income from self-employment. Received unearned incomes such as individual interest, annuities, alimony, or distribution from an IRA, not Roth IRAs, 401k plan, or trust. Had withholding or made estimated payments for income such as dividends, interest, distributions from an IRA, and so on. Then we have the demographics, and I will be 65 or older, or I am blind. Those will and you can think about how, as you go through these questions, you might want to think, well, why do they need this question? How do they have an effect on the tax calculation? Why are these part of the bare minimum? They're trying to bring the minimum amount of questions that they can to give the accurate amount of information in here. So you want to think about these questions as we will later on when we go through the components of the tax formula. Income withholding. Enter your income and withholding for each job and or pension you will earn income from this year. Each job should be entered separately. The order in which you enter them does not matter. Round to the nearest dollar value. Do you expect to hold this job the entire year? I'm going to say yes. How frequently are you paid? We're going to say we're paid, let's say monthly to keep it easy. Once a month. How frequently are you paid? On what date did your most recent pay period end? And we're going to say the most recent pay period ended the end of November, and then how frequently, and then we have enter the total wages you expect to receive this year. We're going to say total rate wages, let's say 50,000 on the total wages. Enter the amount of any bonus you expect to receive this year. Using your last pay statement, enter the total federal income tax withheld. So we would get the pay stub from the last paycheck and enter the amount withheld here. We'll just do a quick estimate. I'll say 50,000 times, let's say 10%, and obviously we would get this from the paycheck stub. So that would be 5,000 for the year divided by 12 months. So about, let's say 417 for the last paycheck, 417 for the last paycheck, and then we would have had 11 paychecks up to this point times 11. Let's say 4583. So we got 4583, and we would get that from the pay stub. Did you or will you contribute to a tax-deferred retirement plan such as a 401k? I'm going to say no. Did you or will you contribute to the HSA or FSA pre-tax? And I'm going to say no. And then we'll say next. And then it says, do you want to go to the next withholding, including adjustments, or would you like to see the possible adjustments? So we can either go to the adjustments or not. Those are typically going to be the adjustments to income, and you'll note we'll have these, and you can tie these out to the actual tax form. Think about what these adjustments will be once we get to the tax formula, and then you can list out the adjustments. We won't get into all of them now. Next, deductions from income. Deductions reduce the amount of your income subject to income tax. Most taxpayers take a standard deduction. Would you like to take a standard deduction or itemize your deductions? We want to take, I'm going to say the standard deduction. Itemized deduction, of course, would give us another list of itemized, another questionnaire related to itemized. We'll talk more about that later. We'll say next. The credits are amounts you subtract directly from your tax obligation. Would you like to learn more about tax credits you may be eligible for or get your results without credits? And then if we get our results, we get our information. Now, I'm not going to go into an analysis of the information here. The main point I just want to show is that note that interview process can be very useful, but it can also be tedious. Let's say now that I want to go back in time and I want to say, well, what would happen if I change my income to 100,000 or something like that? I'd have to go through each step of the linear process once again. And to some way, shape, or form, that's similar to the individual type software. You'll have to go through that interview process. Nice to go through it once and enter that information again. Not so nice if we want to do projections and try to change the information a lot, but useful tool to have.